If you've ever wondered how an online course can have the ability to change your life, or want to know exactly what's involved in creating one of your own for your business, stay tuned because this episode is all about my personal journey into the online course world, and I cannot wait for you to meet my extra special guest. Hey, I'm Steph, and I'm obsessed with all things travel, marketing, branding, and helping you stand out from the crowd. In just under 2 years, I went from being a home-based travel agent with zero clue how to make it work in the digital world to launching an international ranking travel podcast and creating an online course to help travel agents in lead generation. Here's one thing I know for sure. There has never in the history of the world been a better time to create the travel business you've always wanted. All you need is an actionable strategy and someone to show you the way. Picture this. We're going to spend the next hour of our time together at the Swim Up Pool Bar, where over a cocktail, we deep dive into travel-related topics, mixed with a little classroom training. This show is dedicated to encouraging you to step outside of your comfort zone and into your travel business. I'll show you how I did it and how you can too. Hit subscribe now and let's get into it. If you're a travel agent wanting to stand out in the digital world but you struggle with consistency, tech isn't your jam and you have no idea where to start, join my free masterclass where I talk about exactly this. Head to stephaniemyers.academy/masterclass. You're listening to Unplug in Paradise, the podcast. Hello and welcome to Unplug in Paradise. I'm Stephanie Myers, and if you're new around here, a big warm welcome to you. And if you've been tuning in for a while, thanks so much for coming back and being a part of our incredible travel community here. Okay, I am 100% excited about today's episode, and I do have to let you know that this episode does run a little longer than my usual episodes, but there is always a but. But this episode is one where we go behind the scenes in the creation and my journey of my online program at Travel Agent Runway with no other than my business mentor and today's extra special guest, Stevie Dillon from Stevie Says Social. Stevie needs no introduction, really, as everyone knows that a few years back, she was the girl whose podcast we all subscribed to whenever we wanted to learn anything about the world of social media marketing. I know that back in 2018, when I started my travel business, I had all guns blazing and all fired up, ready to let the world know I was now working for myself and literally launched to crickets. So, like many new small business owners, you go scrambling looking for someone to help digest the information a little easier because it is really overwhelming and also in a way that made a lot more sense to me. So, for me, that person was Stevie. Fast forward to now, though, Stevie is the founder of Launchpad, a 12-month high-level group coaching program that teaches current and aspiring digital course creators how to create, launch, and scale a flagship online course. Her mission is to help others pull more time, freedom, and happiness from their lives and businesses with a digital course. Stevie is also the podcast host of the Stevie Says Show podcast, where she shares the inside scoop on all things digital courses and online business. It is a regular on the Apple Podcast Marketing Top 10 and has been downloaded more than 500,000 times to date, which doesn't really surprise me as I'm pretty sure my binge downloads alone would, no joke, make up for about 100,000 of her downloads. Not even kidding. But before we dive into today's episode, it's full of juiciness. I have to let you know that. I'm going to give you some context behind why we're here. In 2021, I signed up to Stevie's Launchpad program to help me create, launch, and scale my own flagship digital course, which I did in 2021 when the travel industry was so shit. And I created my program called Travel Agent Runway. I started out with the tiniest little email list of travel agents mostly of travel agents that I knew. And by creating something that promises on delivering a transformation so unique to the travel industry, it has now evolved into something that is absolutely life changing for so many travel agents and travel advisors all around Australia who are now confidently navigating the digital world and surging toward maximizing all the potential the new travel movement has to offer. So late last year, we recorded this episode, and I do apologize for holding out on you guys, but I was waiting for the perfect time to release it. So before we head over to Stevie, let's recognize the generations of the local Aboriginal people of the Bundjalung Nation who have lived in and derived their physical and spiritual needs from the forests, rivers, lakes, and streams of this beautiful valley over thousands of years as the traditional owners and custodians of these lands. I absolutely loved doing this episode with Stevie, and I really hope that you get a ton out of it. Would love to know your thoughts, but all I can say is strap in, you're in for a ride. So let's go.
Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. As always, I am so happy to be here with an amazing guest. And this week's guest, I'll let her introduce herself, but I'm really excited to have her on because we're talking about course creation, which I always do, you guys know, but specifically in the context of kicking off not in the ideal circumstances. So, today's guest is in an industry that has been really hit hard by the whole COVID side of things, which is the travel industry. And to be honest, that could be an excuse not to create a course and not to do all of the awesome things that she has done, but she has done it anyway. The other thing that I think is really interesting about today's guest is that she has, now this is total online course geek speak, but achieved a really amazing conversion rate. And for anyone that doesn't know what that means the percentage of people that purchase in a launch in her very first launch with a smaller email list. And I know that that is something that is a question, an objection, something that is on the mind of any aspiring course creator, and understandably so. So, looking forward to diving into both of those things and more. A huge welcome to the podcast, Steph.
Hi, Stevie. Oh, thank you so much.
Now, tell me a little bit to start off with about you, your business, your audience, and of course, your course.
Well, I'm Steph. I've been in the travel industry for almost 14 years. So, a big part of my career has been here selling travel. I'm located in the northern New South Wales near the Queensland border, so very close to the coast, and always love, delving into anything to do with cruise and things like that. I'm a big cruise geek. But when it comes to, moving and pivoting in the times when we really didn't have any other choice and we were pushed up against the wall because literally we couldn't go anywhere. I felt like at that time I needed to do something to really help the industry. So I put together an online course and here we are. I am, yeah, really passionate about just wanting to help the industry as a whole because I've been seeing such huge gaps, and a lot of my travel agent pals out there have just been really struggling with things.
So your course specifically is helping people out with, the marketing side of things and the lead generation side of things. And I think one thing that I like specifically love about the marketing side of things is that regardless of which industry you're helping, you have the opportunity to bring something to them that's not associated with their actual skills. So for your guys, it's like travel agents and helping them out with marketing their travel business. And I think that's so needed at the moment, which is really cool.
Mm.
So tell me a little bit about, okay, so 12 months ago, I feel like we were probably worse off than we are now in terms of, the whole C word and the travel industry in general. Where were you at? Like tell me a little bit about where you were at in your business and then also kind of your thoughts around and the catalyst for deciding, okay, an online course might be my next step.
Okay, so this time last year, I had just completed your widely successful podcast course. So, had just launched Unplug in Paradise, and literally it just went gangbusters. So, I hadn't really experienced anything like that before, like the highs of a launch. It just had me buzzing for like at least 2 months. I just kept on the same wave as long as I could. But then at the end of November, I had, emails from yourself and just, Launchpad was coming and I was thinking, okay, well, I've done my podcast. What is my next step? What else can I be doing? I had just moved house. I was sitting in in a lounge room full of boxes with my business advisor saying, I've got this really rad opportunity to jump on with Stevie for 12 months. It's a coaching program to learn how to do an online course. And I was basically selling it to him. And he's just looked at me and he goes, so do you want me to make the decision for you or have you already made your decision? And he just said, well, look, you're sitting here in absolute chaos. Like, look at you. You're sitting there with boxes all around you, and you're asking me what you should be doing as your next step. I think you've already chosen what you would like to do. So, and I think it also came back to our correspondence beforehand. At just I just want to shake you and tell you how perfect this is for you. And I think just having that trust in someone for myself was just such a huge leap of faith that I knew that I was stepping into open arms and really good hands. So yeah, I just went in 100% trust, especially when I, had nothing else left to lose. I had pretty much lost my whole travel business at that point. Every single forward booking I had to cancel. So yeah, I had nowhere else to go other than into your arms and
Into my arms. I love that. I've got a visual. I think it's so interesting. Obviously, I was interviewing Elise last week, and she also had done the podcasting course and was sort of looking at, okay, so what comes after this? And I think it's so interesting. There's such a synergy between two things. Number one, I think like podcasting and online courses are a match made in heaven because you build up your thought leadership. You kind of almost flex your launch muscles a little bit and you
Mm,
get, when you said that there was such a high associated with it, I so know that feeling, Steph. It's like, oh, you put yourself out there and you're not sure how it's going to go. And then you start to see, oh my gosh, I'm impacting people. This is amazing. But I also think that like the resilience and fortitude that's needed for a podcast. So like the upfront work involved,
mm.
the fact that, there's the fear of, oh my God, like I'm putting myself out there. This is really scary. Like, I actually think there's a lot of similarities and watching you go through that podcasting process. And obviously you were a star in that course. That's when I was like, you know what? I actually think that Steph would be perfect for this because you proved it through the podcasting side of things.
Well, I had a podcast prior to starting your podcast course, but it fell
Mm.
flat on its face because I had no direction. I think that was part and parcel of just, not knowing what to do. And I think initially when I first started, you inspired me to start in the first place. um, it was just came down to a DM on Instagram and I asked you, what's involved in, I was one of those annoying people that
Never
asked you initially,
annoying.
what's,
No.
how do you start a podcast? And you're like, oh, just lots of Googling. And I'm like, righto, challenge accepted, girl. Like, let's do this.
Yeah. Or just do the course,
Yeah.
one or the other.
And I thought like a year later the course came out. I was like, okay, cool. I've given it a go, the best shot that I could possibly, do on my own
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
professional help. And now I
Yeah.
need professional help just to fill in the gaps that I wasn't so sure on. So yeah, glad I
Yeah.
did it because then it launched me into this, into
Yeah.
Launchpad. And you know what? To be totally honest, an online course wasn't part of my, prolific, futuristic plans at all. It was you planted a seed and in a very short period of time I had to make a decision and I
Mhm.
decided to go, cool, well, for the next 12 months, I don't know what travel's gonna do. It could come back, it
Mhm.
could not. Who knows? We could be stuck in limbo land for,
Mhm.
quite a few years yet. And I need to be doing something, bored travel agents, we boredom and travel agents, we are a good mix.
I think it's there's two ways. Like, I think that there's a mindset thing around that. So there's two ways that you could have approached that. It could have been, and I think Elise last week had a really similar mindset. So I think it's interesting. And I've never ever been a mindset girl, but my God, since I've gotten into digital courses, I really see the difference between how it can propel someone forward and conversely when it's working against you how it can keep you stuck, and it's done that to me as well.
Mhm,
But I think two things are interesting about you, Steph. Number one is like you could have said, okay, the travel industry is effed at the moment.
mhm. Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. Therefore, it's not going to work for me. And it's almost like that would pause you before you even hit the go button, right? Or I'm not in the position that I should be in. Like, whatever those thoughts are, everyone has like, I want to be an online course creator. and it's like the but that holds them back before they even try.
Mm.
So I'm proud of you. But let's go into, okay, so you're like, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to trust this girl, Stevie. Let's do Launchpad. What does the last 12 months look like for you? Bird's eye view to start off with, and then we can kind of down into the specifics.
So, bird's eye view, I would say that this whole last 12-month period, I have actually grown so much as a person. I've grown
And
so much as a business, and I've grown so much more in way of confidence and stepping into myself. Because I feel like when you're a solo business person, you're not working with a lot of people.
yeah,
It's a very singular journey, and I think Launchpad really, what I've learned in Launchpad is basically just to how it's challenged me in more ways than I can describe.
yeah,
It's really stretched me in ways that I didn't even know I could stretch. I've been
yeah,
in travel for such a long time and we have such a systematic process when we go through things that as soon as something kind of interrupts what we're doing, we've got, plan A, plan B, plan C that we run through, but this is so different to anything that I've ever, thrown myself at. And yeah, it's just really expanded my horizons. And I've never felt like an entrepreneur before. Like, I feel like the name's like a little bit wanky to some extent, but
yeah.
I've really owned that this year. And before I wouldn't have. And I know that I'm doing something to really have that status. And I feel really proud of myself. And yeah, it has been a really, really hard journey. But
So
yes.
tell me more about the journey because I think this is like the one thing with course creation. Like in the online world, it's like, oh, it's passive income and you can just go off and, like, like work on a laptop, on the beach and it's going to be amazing. And I always want to dispel that because I'm like, yeah, you can get to the point where you do that, but you also have to be committed to doing some upfront work and also committed to the process, which isn't always linear. And like reading between the lines with you, Steph, like it's not always easy, right?
No,
And
definitely
so,
not.
and it's not like you can come into sort of like a coaching program or commit to doing something and be like, okay, this is going to give me like the perfect, like nothing's going to go wrong and it's going to be like a lovely dance in the park, right? And I think that's completely unrealistic. Like the marketing of some of these programs, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I think like you actually need, I think, and this is, I've got another question for you,
Mm,
but it's like a little bit later on. I'll get to it. But for me, like the reason why I ever joined something or I realized like I need a mentor or someone to help me with something is like I know that it's not going to go perfectly. And I actually need someone for when it's hard.
mm.
Because if I was not having the support of someone when it's hard, who knows if I would get through it and who knows if I'd know what to do next. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
I think the accountability side of things as well, I can relate to as well, because I only reach out when I need help.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I was needing a lot of help. I had no faith in what it was that I was doing.
Yeah.
I needed that, my hand squeezed really, really tightly just to make sure
Mm.
that I had that reassurance. And yeah, once I started feeling really confident about what I was doing, then I think the journey completely opened up for me in way of, where do you take this?
Yeah.
And you have a clear direction, but you just think, okay, well, there's no cap. I can take this wherever I like and have the
That is what I
confidence.
love about courses.
Yes.
Once you get through the upfront work, it's like, okay, I've got this asset in my business and I have this forever now. And it's not like service work where like I have to do the work over and over and over. So the first challenge for you was, okay, how do we actually come up with an offer and refine it and make it the right offer that's going to be irresistible for people? What did that
Yes.
look like for you? What was that process like?
Yeah. So I had to find my pillow problem. And for
Hmm.
many nights, I was laying on my pillow wondering what my problems are. I'm like, is this what Stevie means by pillow problem?
It
So-
literally is. It is. So when I say like you've got to like get into the hearts and minds of your people and think about their pillow problems, what I mean by that is like what is keeping them up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, not the things that they're like, oh, that's annoying at midday. So it literally is a pillow problem, Steph.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially when I'm awake at that time wondering what my pillow problem is.
Yeah. Yep. And it's not an easy process, is it?
No, definitely not. It's very challenging. And I think at that time I was still hanging on to the hope that travel would come back sooner than later. But I
Yeah.
think the turning point for me was, who do I want to serve and who have I served over the last 12 months? So
Mm,
during a pandemic, that wasn't my client base. That
yeah.
was people in the industry questioning me about my podcast, questioning me about my appearances in different PR publications and things like that online, asking about my website, asking me questions about my newsletters that I send out to people, how I am keeping in touch with my client base. All those sorts of questions kept coming in, and I had to really sit with the stats and go through everything and think, you know what? I've actually been more of service to travel agents in the last 12 months than I've been to actual clients with their
Mm,
travels. So for me, it was just like the most biggest light bulb moment. And I think it just the burst of excitement knowing that I had found something that could potentially not only give me something really substantial to work with, but I knew that I could really throw myself at over a given period of time to help get my industry back on track and help agents, those agents who were reaching out to me, help actually really help them get from where they are to where they want to be using the skills that I had developed as well. So it was such a huge thing. I've got goosebumps talking about it because it just gives me the feels.
but it
But
wasn't like
yes.
that wasn't immediately apparent to you. Like I remember when we were going through that kind of like process of choosing your course topic and um, like from the outsider's perspective looking in and looking with the perspective of hindsight, you'd look at Steph and be like, oh, of course that's what you should be doing, right?
Mhm.
But it wasn't immediately apparent to you. And I think like it's so interesting because once you have that perspective and maybe you have other people that can sort of give you a little bit of a bird's eye, no, I can see this clearly, it becomes clear. But you really like, I remember you going back and forth, like you were going back and forth a lot with
Mm,
different ideas. Like, how can I serve the travel industry? And you weren't even kind of really thinking 100% about the travel agent side of things until, we got down to nitty gritty and you were like, well, there's an alignment with the podcast. This could work really well. But
mm,
I think it's important to say that because sometimes you don't have the clarity around this sort of thing. Like now it's like, yes, this is what Steph was supposed to do. And it's so obvious, but
mm,
it's almost like taking the action of deciding that you're going to do it gives you the clarity you need.
That's true. I
Yeah.
felt like at the time I knew I wanted to help the travel industry. I just didn't know how.
Mm.
So I knew I had all these, things that I wanted to do. And, I was quite imaginative and creative in that sense, I think. But there was a moment where I thought, okay, well, I can really help the travel industry, not by helping the traveler, because the traveler's not going to bed going, oh, I can't travel right now. Such a problem. There
Well, I
it's
do,
it's
but
not at that point earlier on in the year, it wasn't a thing. I couldn't
no.
imagine my clients going, "Oh my god, I can't travel. I can't sleep
Yeah.
tonight."
But
But
it's also not necessarily a profitable problem, right?
no,
So, like, it's like just solving the right problem as well.
that's right. And there was a lot of travel agents that had, their businesses completely decimated, including mine. And it
Mm.
was just to wonder, like, how do I help these people help travelers? We
Yeah.
To get travel agents back on their feet or to get travelers back on their feet, it needs to start with us.
Hmm.
It all starts with us. We are the change. So then, yeah, I've loved the journey between then and where we are today because it's the new travel movement that we're creating and
Yeah.
it's
And I
all
know how
starting
passionate about.
with us.
Yeah, you're so sorry to cut you off, Steph. I hate doing that. I get excited.
That's all right.
But I love how, like, passionate you are when you talk about it. I'm like, yeah, you can tell that it's, like, something that you care so deeply about. But you didn't know until you put your course out there whether it would be the right course,
No
right?
idea. I had
So
no
tell
idea.
me a little bit about how you validated your course in that process.
Yeah, so it was very scary for me. I had put together my course, Travel Agent Runway, and I thought, well, how's this going to land for people? There's a lot of expectation out there that travel agents have, this um, marketing structure around them all the time, and it's true. But when you're working for yourself, it's you. People don't buy the business that you're working for; they buy who you are as a person. And I think there was just too many people hiding behind, a brand that they had no connection with,
Mm,
or, they didn't know how to step into their businesses. They were hiding behind a lot of, someone else's advertising rather than really stepping into what it was that they were passionate about, selling and talking to the people that they are really passionate about serving. So at that point, I feel like there was a lot of questions around what it was that I was doing, but there was also a lot of need. And underlying all of that was so much fear.
mm,
But what I really had to tap into was just that, hey, I'm like you. I'm a travel agent just like you. Like, I know where we are. I know where we're going to go, but I also need to instill faith in you that this is how we're going to get there. This is the only way we're going to get there. And there was a lot of people that thought, you know what? It was a no brainer for them. They said, yep, can see so much value in this. I need this in my life. I'm in. And then there were so many people just umming and ahhing. And there was a little bit of psychology behind that as well. They still thought that they had that $1 million business that they had pre-COVID,
mm.
but they think that they can just pick that up again and just keep going when COVID's over. It's like you can't just have a 2-year gap in your business and expect to have that sort of, business again, because it's just not something that's logically possible in any sense. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are struggling with, okay, my business is gone. What are some things that I can actively do in my business now to rebuild it back up?
Mm.
But there's always things to change. And I think we've had a lot of time to think about it. Yeah. So we're wondering, okay, so how do we change things for the better? How can we really, you know, rise up and level up and actually take control over our industry and change it into something that we really want to work in, and where we're respected and where our self-worth uh, is being treasured and valued, as opposed to, you're no different to the next travel agent in, down the street, or, in the area. I'm not traditional, but there's so many people out there that take their jobs so seriously, and so they should. But you need to implement some personality in there, because that's the only thing that's going to help you shine at the end of the day. And I know you get me there.
I do, but I can also see how difficult it potentially would have been to sell to people that don't even know that it's a problem for them. So people that
Mm,
aren't even in marketing speak problem aware. And
yes.
so I know that you went through kind of like, we call it in Launchpad your foundation round, where you really sort of personally sell your course to validate it, essentially. And you had, what was the result of your foundation round?
So it was, had 5 students that signed up. So
That's right.
I reached out to 50 agents and I had
Yeah.
5 sign up. So it was about a 10% conversion on that one.
Yeah. Amazing. So cool. And I think like going through that process, you probably really, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you probably could tell me more than I might even just ask you the question. Did you feel like you needed to, I guess, not just sell the course? So, the big thing with being a course creator is that you're not selling information, you're selling a transformation, right?
Hmm.
And so, for these people that, you're potentially reaching out to and you're like, hey, I've got this option for you. What did it look like to have to kind of sell them something that they didn't even really know that they needed yet? Not easy, I imagine.
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy. I think I haven't been shy when it comes to promoting the podcast and promoting my point of difference. And I think there was a lot of travel agents out there who were quite drawn to that initially. And, anytime we go to a conference, I'd get seeked out going, oh, you're the girl with the podcast. Oh, I've
Yeah.
listened to your few episodes before. And it's so cool. And, and I didn't even realize at that point in time that people even listened to me.
Mhm.
Because, podcasting's very one-sided. You're speaking to yourself majority of the time,
Yeah.
like a crazy
You just think
person.
you're in a room talking to no one else. Like, totally. I had the same experience.
So when you hear that, come around full circle, it's actually so rewarding, and you just know that you're making a difference. But you don't always know that when you're pitching something new to someone,
Mm.
especially when, we're both sitting here in a shop, theoretically in a shop with no stock, looking at each other going, cool, well, I've got a good idea. Do you want in on my good idea? So
Yeah.
it was
That's literally
just
what it's like.
it was just, pitching the idea that things are going to improve, and that
Mm,
there are better ways to work smarter, not harder.
mm,
And, being, Generation Y, it's something that to be admired, I think,
mm,
especially
mm.
when there's consultants before you who are now heading into a brand new era where the internet era was hard for them to crack. They get a hang of that, and then it's changing once again. So
Yeah.
yeah, we always um, struggle when it comes to introducing new things into our industry, but I sold it on the basis that it would be a hybrid kind of business standpoint for them. So they could still consult and do everything that they do the same, but a portion of their business would only be the consulting part, the itinerary part, the booking part would theoretically be, 20% of their business. And the other 80% is marketing, their involvement in events, their
Yeah.
digital presence, and what they're doing to get their name out there and really build their authority in their space. So yeah, that's what I sold them. I didn't sell them. They already know how to do their business. I'm not teaching
Yeah.
them how to run their travel agency. I'm helping them and assisting them on how to build their online presence. So
Yeah.
something that, none of us really had before, but we need to now if COVID's taught us anything.
Totally. And I think probably what they were doing as well is looking at what you were doing with your podcast and kind of seeing in them or seeing in you like a potential future in them. And I think that's really powerful as well. Like they were almost seeing like the potential for transformation, like doing travel agency work a completely different way. And they were seeing that in you, which I think is really cool as well. So we validated our course. We had our 5 students in. I remember when you messaged me, you were like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing ever." And so the next step, obviously, in Launchpad and as a course creator in general, is the course creation process and then going into your first launch, which we call a light launch, which means really a no pressure, no expectations launch to get data. We're putting our scientist hat on to see what happens. So walk me through the course creation process first, and then let's go into launch because well, let's start with course creation. What did that look like for you?
Okay, so after the foundation round launch, I was on that big high as we are, we're on that cloud. Then all of a sudden, it's like we pick up a piano and just jump off a cliff with it. Putting together a course, you're needing to draw on all your skills and putting it into really actionable modules and things like that, that your, perfect fit students are going to want to learn how they can learn from you. I know that course creating is giving so much of yourself because it's not necessarily like a institutionalized thing. It's more of a personalized experience. So yes, it was very hard to be digging deep into all that. I was just so grateful to have a really patient group of foundation students because, yeah, really great that they, kept me accountable, kept me in check. I
Mm.
was, it was quite challenging as well because I was very fairly time constrained as well at that time. But yeah, we ended up doing really well with it. But yeah, course creation is no easy feat, and
It's the hard bit.
it
It's
is
the hard
so
bit.
hard, and I love your
Got to create
mindset.
a course and you've never done it before. And
No.
it's the biggest asset in your business. And yeah, like I do think that that needs to be said because I think there's so many amazing things that come with being a course creator. But I think you also need to realize that, yeah, like I said earlier, there is the upfront work. And thank you for being transparent with that because I remember like as you were like deep in the muck and going through and creating all of your different bits and pieces, um, the different mindset things you were going through, and that was coming up in the questions and things that you were asking. And at the end of it, and this is something that I was talking to Elise about in her podcast, there's just this like elation feeling again when you finished it because you're like, oh my gosh, I've actually finished this thing that, I've like birthed and it's like something I've never done before and now I've got it out there and I'm so proud. But you need to go through the process in order to get to that point as well.
And yeah,
Mhm.
they're just waves in the ocean. Some are bigger than others. You got to hold your breath for longer,
Yeah,
but you always pop up the other side. And you think, "Holy hell, how did I
I
do
did
that?"
that. I did that.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to pop in to invite you to my free masterclass where I'll be sharing my exact 3 step system to building a rockstar personal brand that attracts your dream clients into your database so you can step up into your travel biz, own your authority, and grow your online presence. And not only that, but you'll also get your hands on my entire Travel Agent Runway framework for standing out in the digital world without the tech overwhelm and not knowing where to start. Want in? Head to stephaниemyers.academy/masterclass and save your spot now. See you there.
So this is the thing. So you kind of go through, like you create the offer, you create the course, and then the other sort of like piece of work that's involved in being a course creator is then once you've created kind of like the course, you need to create the selling system.
Mhm.
So tell me, let's go into the launch because one thing that we always kind of look at when we're going into a launch period is goal setting. And so we make a hypothesis around, okay, how many sales might we expect based on the audience building that we've done, on the size of our email list, on a few different factors, right? And where you were at that particular time, Steph, your end result ended up being wildly different to what I would have expected in terms of your goals for that very first launch. And the reason for that is that you kind of started out with, I don't think you had an email. Did you have an email list prior to launch?
So prior to my launch, I had created a lead magnet probably about 6 to 8 weeks prior to launching. So
Yes.
my list building uh, techniques and things like that were in swing. I wouldn't say full swing, but I
Mhm.
was still list building. But it wasn't until I jumped on board with Clear and I was on the panel with the Phoenix girls. That's when things really ramped up for me because a semi-public appearance. I was in front of, over 300 plus perfect fit students, travel agents in the travel industry who are passionate with cruise. Like that's totally my jam. And yeah, after that, things just ramped up really heavily. I was getting so much praise for the work that I had put in already. And it was right at the beginning of my launch. And I feel like I technically done my launch in reverse, but I mean, I've worked with the framework that we use in Launchpad, and I mean, it worked. It worked. I don't know how it worked, but it worked, and I hadn't even
Mm.
pieced together the masterclass yet, but here I am signing people up, and just that general overwhelm, I think, would that always gets me. I always feel like I'm getting in my own way when I'm overwhelmed, and it's it's a bit of a beast, especially when
Yeah.
you're
You mean
trying to.
creating your webinar?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Creating a webinar is like, so I think there's two elements of a launch that feel like a lot. And I think the webinar, and then if you do like a long form sales page, both of those assets. But again, like in terms of assets in your course business, your course, your webinar, your sales page are like the three big things you'll have forever. And once they're done, they're done. But I get it.
Yes, and I think it was the emails as well, like setting up the email funnels and automations and
Yeah.
things like that. Like I had never done anything like that before, but man, I feel like a pro.
Yes. And I think like the big O word, the overwhelm word does come up like whenever, and I just kind of like take myself back to the early days of being a course creator. And I think like the first time that you do anything, you do have that feeling of, oh my gosh, like I've never done this before and it feels hard. But what I would say, like your launch process, right? When you said like you kind of did it the reverse way around, I would actually almost say that you did it in a very condensed on top of each other way. So with your Clear event, and for anyone that's not in the travel industry, that's cruise
Cruise
line.
Cruise Line International Association.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So that is obviously like a very industry specific event for Steph. And so really I think you were growing, like you really grew your audience in a small period of time strategically with an event that was going to warm people up very quickly.
Mhm.
And then I think like you then were in a fortunate place that you could then funnel that straight into a launch. But I don't think any of that was done for you uh, like you kind of say it's the first time you've done it, but you did it really strategically because, and maybe you can walk us through, like, You didn't just kind of go, oh my gosh, I've got this speaking opportunity. Let's just see what happens with it. You were very strategic in the sense that you were like, okay, well, I've got a launch coming up. So, how can I leverage this amazing opportunity to build my biggest asset, which is my email list, and invite people to this webinar? So, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I basically it's exactly you just nailed it. So I this opportunity came to me about 3 weeks prior to when it was happening, and I thought, "Holy moly, what an opportunity." Like, I was literally floored. Yeah, biggest probably appearance that I've ever done, and I was very fortunate to be on with such, highly skilled people, and I thought, "Okay, well, if I'm going to launch, it's going to be straight after that." Because I can really harness
Mhm.
the appearance, and I'm glad that I did it in a strategic way, as you say, is that I use the appearance as a list building exercise, and then I was able to then have everything kind of fall into place with my normal ramp up for the launch, because the way that I did it, yes, I agree, it was very condensed and it was very big and overwhelming, and it just felt like a lot, but I purposely did it that way because I didn't wanna leave too much time between my clear event to when I launched, because I didn't want
Mm.
people to lose interest, and within that time, I was, doing all of our, core content strategies. I was doing implementing all of those, so they were working, without a hitch, so it was very smooth once it happened, but I feel like it was very in reverse. But I mean, looking at it in hindsight, it's probably the better way to do it. I
Mm.
mean, if you have the opportunity to be on a speaking gig or something like that, and then do the launch after, because then it's getting more, as you say, your eyeballs on what you're working on. And yeah, getting more eyeballs on your work, what you can offer, and yeah, people be able to see your value and wanna
Yeah, well, you
wanna
don't wanna
join
be
in.
doing that after a launch, like and I think this is like that pre-launch period before you come up to a launch. It's like you're warming people up, getting them to know you, like you, and trust you, and, you'll do that on things like, your own email list, you'll do it on your own social channels, and but one thing I say in Launchpad is, like, any opportunity that you can get to get in front of new people, so not just talking to the people that you already have, but getting in front of new people, and I think, like, speaking is just such a perfect example of that, because there is just such an authority that comes with being on a virtual or physical stage, especially if it's in front of like really aligned people like
Mhm.
you did have, Steph. And it definitely paid off for you. So tell me a little bit about, so I'm a numbers and data girl. And there's standard conversion rates in terms of the industry, right? So good for an online course is for every 100 eyeballs that see your offer, between 1 and 5 people will purchase. And so, we do milestone calls inside of Launchpad, as you know, but for everyone listening, the first thing that we kind of go through and we dissect and we look at after every launch or key milestone is, okay, were we within the range? If yes, great. Do we need to improve on that range? Or were we not in the range, and was it a traffic problem, a conversion problem, or was it something else, and what do we need to fix? And the launch gives us that data.
Mhm.
And I know that our milestone call is coming up tomorrow, so we haven't had it yet, but I do know your data. So if you want to share kind of what those numbers look like for you, and you'll get extra bonus points if you know what your conversion rate was, Steph.
Sure, no worries. So, I think by the end of my masterclass, you know, um, list, I think I had about 124 people signed up for the masterclass, which was insane considering my goal was, 50, or, I wanted at least 50 on there just because I knew I had a little list. But then my little list turned to a really big list. So I was really glad for that. On my actual live masterclass, I had 62 people attend. So travel agents, I think there were about 52 travel agents that came. I also had a couple of, people support and cruise executives and things like that. And within my hour before I finished my masterclass, I had 7 travel agents sign up to the program. And I just felt like Wonder Woman. I had done my job. I had delivered. I had smashed it, even though I literally had messaged you like 5 minutes before my webinar saying, "How on earth do you merge a PDF? Stevie, help me now."
But a really important life-changing question, but it
Yeah.
is. That tech stuff is like, oh, the ultimate freak out, right?
And I'm a little bit opposite to you. So if it wasn't for the last minute, what would we achieve? So I'm very much like that. And yeah, I love a deadline, and I love to really ram things in the last 5 minutes. So there I was freaking out. But then yeah, threw myself in and channeled my, inner entrepreneur, and yeah, delivered a really, really valuable course, masterclass to travel agents, and taught them something very valuable that they can then, walk away thinking, okay, I really need to action something in my business. There's something missing. This is
Mm,
this is new. It's new for us, but it's old in way of marketing. And why haven't we been doing this all along? So I
yeah.
think that
Let me
inspiration
just
helped a
with
lot of
the
people.
webinar. Sorry. God, I'm like the cut me off queen today. Can you just like whack me over the head with a stick every time I do it? No, I was gonna say, I don't even remember what I was gonna say. No, I do remember what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, number one, that show up rate is amazing. The show up rate is like so 7. So
So it was
wait,
14%.
so 14%. So hold on. So you had about 60 people that were actually on the webinar. And then you had how many people register?
124.
So that is a lot more than 14%.
Oh, I had 14% conversion.
So 14% conversion is amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so the whole way along, basically what we look at are benchmarks, right? So how many people registered? That is number one. Then how many people from the people that registered actually showed up for the webinar? And we're looking at about 25%. And
Okay.
so you smashed that out of the park, which is amazing. Then how many people that were on the webinar purchased on the webinar, right? And you had 7 purchases, which I think puts us at about 10% on the webinar. And obviously, you had some sales afterwards as well. And then overall conversion rate. So, how many people purchased? So, remember, guys, we're looking at between 1% and 5%. And Steph, what was your conversion rate?
I
14%.
14%. There we go. Yeah, so it's
Oh,
quite big, and I think a lot of it came down to travel agents are pretty time poor at the best of times, but I think in this environment, everyone's got second jobs, everyone's still working with families, still, we're in either lockdown or whatever, like it's some sort of like really crazy thing that we've having to deal with. And I think at that moment, like there was a lot of people that didn't know that I had a webinar, or didn't know, or they had signed up for it, but then time got away on them, or,
mm,
life happened. So a really strategic thing that I did afterwards was post the hype into travel agent Facebook groups that I had done my webinar, and if they were keen on the replay, just to, DM me replay. And then that way I captured quite a few people that hadn't even known about the masterclass,
mm.
didn't sign up for the masterclass, watched the replay and purchased on the replay.
And I think that's a really good learning around like, so in a launch, there's like the pre launch period, then there's the registration period where you're registering people, then there's the actual launch event, which is your webinar. And then like, it's not over then. And I
No.
think like this is like where there's a big either like it happens intentionally and it happens unintentionally. It happens unintentionally where you get to your masterclass and then you're so tired because of all the work that you've done beforehand that you just go dark. Or it happens unintentionally when you think that you've done the masterclass and that's it. But there's this period, which is your card open period, where there's so much opportunity and where you've obviously maximized that by kind of going out and saying, hey, this masterclass has just happened. I've still got my card open period here. You guys are perfect fit. Would you be interested? And so I think that's a really great takeaway for anyone that is, a current or aspiring course creator. It's not over until it's over. And
Yes.
over is like the second that the cart closes on the last day, and you need to maintain until then.
Yes. So even when the cart was closed for me, I still had people the next day, "Oh, I'm just getting around to your masterclass now," the replay.
Yeah.
It was full on, hey.
Yeah. No.
And I loved the questions during that time as well. Like the questions, I think you could call them objections really, but in my case there wasn't any objections because I think people knew it was something that they needed. The
Yeah.
only things that were coming up was obviously financial because we're in a crisis. And the second one was, time when they're trying to fit in other jobs, and both of those things can be rectified over time. But yeah, we're at a stage now where things are really launching and, revving up in the travel industry. It's something that they need to be implementing now because in 6 months' time, travel's going to look different and they've already done the groundwork to getting their business back on the radar and doing it
Mm,
in a different sense and really owning what they do and being really solid in what they do. So,
really
yeah.
cool, Steph. Congratulations. So, what was the dollar figure? Where did that launch end up?
So my goal was to crack 10,000 and in the so the late stages of cart close, it was 12 and a half.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank
And I
you.
think the really cool thing as well is that now you've got this cohort of students. And when you say like things are just opening up, they're starting to experience obviously all of the amazing transformations that come through your course. And your course, I believe, is now so well positioned for the next round where things are opening up and potentially there is more opportunity there for, uh, for growing the course with travel agents who need to get out there now that things are not how they have been for the last 2 years, to be
No.
completely frank.
That's right, and I really
Yeah.
think there is a lot of, I'm in a good position where the course will evolve and
Yeah.
continue to evolve, and I've already thought of some things that I wanna, tweak and things like that, which I would love to run by you.
Of
But, yeah, I
course.
really think that at this point in time, it's a very important thing that all travel agents need to be thinking about, like how they want to be positioned. But what I love about the people that have, jumped in, even though it's scary, is that between the students that I have in the program already, our knowledge base is just shy of 400 years in the travel industry. And that literally just blows my absolute mind because little old
Mhm.
me has created this, program. And now I've got people who have just been in the industry like 47 years 45 years at a time. And I've got, 20 of these incredible, highly skilled people. And yeah, between us, there's 400 years knowledge. So
Oh my
it's so
gosh.
crazy. It is so crazy.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. And you're impacting them in a new way. And I think that that is truly so powerful. So, Steph, tell me a couple of things. Number one, the question that I was going to ask earlier, and I'm like trying to get better as a podcaster and not just go off on these crazy tangents, which I always do. So I've saved the question until now. But I'm genuinely curious because, no, I'm just genuinely curious. What do you look for in like a coach or mentor?
Yeah, so trust is a big thing for me. As a travel agent, we only work with companies and businesses that we trust because
Yeah,
then we are, entrusting them to look after our clients when they're on the other side of the world. So building those really solid business relationships are important to, any service based business. But I think more so for me, what I look for is someone who I know has proven results. And Stevie, I've watched your journey for the last few years of listen to your podcast in the car, in the shower, at home, on walks, making dinner for my son. Like I've listened to you all over and I've really watched your transformation go from, social media, all through the things to where you are now. And it's just an absolute testament to you, your process, your success, the way you do things, your strategy, and it works, girl. So for me, it was basically a no-brainer. It was the next logical step for me doing the podcasting course. But I think if I was in a position, I would have done it anyway,
mm,
um, just based on witnessing your growth and knowing that it's someone that I really want to aspire to. So yeah, that's why I made the decision, and I thought, well, Stevie's done this, and there's no reason why I can't too. So
yeah,
yeah.
and I saw the potential in you 100%. Thank you. That's actually like, it's really nice to hear you say that. And I'm always
Oh, I
just
can hear
genuinely
tears. I
curious.
can hear tears. Is there tears?
No, 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 cheers. I'm okay. Oh, I just think like, the process of like, and I go through this as well when I'm thinking about, and I don't actually do a lot of coaching. because for a number of reasons, like I'm really pig-headed and think I can do everything and then realize I can't and probably reach out to mentors way too late. But I think like that decision-making process of like who do I trust in and like what is it that I look for? I actually like I mirror your thoughts, Steph. Like I
Hmm.
really look for people that I'm like, okay, so number one, like where is the gap in my knowledge and like where can I like leapfrog? So like if I know that that's where I want to be. And if it's going to take me 6 months to get there myself and make all of the mistakes, or I can help someone or I can work with someone that's going to help to guide me to get there a little bit more quickly.
Hmm.
What I have started to realize is that it's worth actually doing that. So yeah, I was truly just genuinely curious. And my second question, which I guess is 100% Launchpad related, 12 months ago, you were obviously like, I want to be a course creator, but, maybe it's my next step. How did you feel the experience in Launchpad helped you? And what would you say to anyone that's kind of thinking, maybe, like, maybe not?
12 months ago, like I said earlier, I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure. I was in
No,
a
as soon as I
position.
said that, I was like, well, you didn't actually 100% know that you wanted to be a course creator.
I
So,
I actually took the leap of faith, and I knew that something needed to happen because I knew that I didn't have work, or I
mm.
potentially wouldn't have work. Travel agents could have easily been extinct, after this time. They've been talking about it for the last 15 years. So,
Travel
and
agents and real estate agents, they've been talking about the extinction, haven't they? And I don't think it's happening. I think it's coming back bigger than ever, Steph.
no, that's right. So I thought, okay, well, this is my chance to do something different. And, it's funny because when I was at high school, I always wanted to be a teacher. Um,
Same.
but even now, like here I am doing, chatting with students and creating modules and lessons. Like I'm just channeling my, little teacher
In
within.
a teacher, it's so true. Do you know, I always wanted to be a teacher, and then I wanted to be a journalist, and then I was like, how funny that now I have a podcast and I'm an online course creator. So similar for you, it sounds like.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And the journey's been rewarding. It's been hard. There's been moments where I thought, okay, I can't do this. And then there's been moments where, holy shit, I actually can't do this. But
Mm.
then there's been moments like, I'm glad I did this. Best decision I've ever done in my entire life. It's changed how I look at opportunities. It's changed how I speak to people. It's changed how I feel confident in myself. And I just love that, between my personal genetic code and your assistance, I feel like even though I have these wild creative thoughts, I don't ever feel like I need to second guess myself. I just, cool idea, let's run with it. I don't feel like I always, because I've got the confidence, I've got that support network, and Launchpad and the people in it are all just so incredible. And I just love everything about Launchpad, like in regards to templates, 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 templates. I can't say that enough. But the
You
templates have
really like the
literally
template.
been amazing. I mean, the strategy calls for accountability have been unreal as well. And it's really interesting to learn about other people's journeys too, because I mean, as a service based industry, I'm quite different. And um, in the way that, yes, I'm service based, but I'm not, we're not in this digital space. It's just, it doesn't, I've made it align, even though it's not the next logical step for a travel agent to create an online course. So it's quite different in that way. But just forming those alliances with different people in different industries and seeing how they're marketing themselves, I have learned so much during this process. And I can't thank you enough for thinking of me and inviting me to the Launchpad training, really.
Words. But what's next for Steph?
Oh, I cannot wait to live launch. I'm hoping to do it in February when school
Mhm.
goes back. I'm really looking forward to having some really beautiful connection with family and friends over the Christmas holidays. And it's been a huge year. Course creating's not easy. And yeah, just looking forward to ramping it up and helping as many travel agents as I possibly can to bring them out of the darkness and stepping into their own businesses and really owning who they are and who they like to serve and what they're really passionate about. So that's my
Amazing.
next step. I'm looking
I love
forward to
it.
that.
It's your next step.
My next step, yes. The next step. Watch this
Yeah.
space.
Exactly. And Steph, has it all been worth it? So you've said it's hard. Has it been worth it?
It has so been worth it. It has so been worth it for myself. What I've learned and what I've grown through this whole year, it's been hands down worth it. Like you've got the monetary value as well. And, as a single parent with no income, other income coming in, it's just been such a huge, frightening thing for me to put myself out there. But I mean, 12 months into the program, I've made it work. I've I'm actually so and utterly proud of myself. I pinch myself every day. This is my life. And I'm freeing my time up so I can spend more time with my son, so we can go on more holidays. I can, you know, be more present in my, consulting work as well, and really work with people with experience base rather than, what's going to be the best way of leverage for me. Like, I'm not into that. I'm so passionate about their individual experiences. And yeah, hopefully I am not continuously sitting on this side of the desk. I can be on the other side booking myself and, and going to more places too. So yes, as soon as everything starts opening back up again and all my students are well underway, I am due for a really cool holiday.
So am I. I just need to
Yeah.
like the baby and then like, but yes, I am with you. Oh, well, congratulations, Steph. One thing I will say is that being a course creator, there's obviously the upfront pieces, and you've gotten to the point where you've validated your course, you've created your course, you've had a successful and validated launch, and you've grown your audience, which are all of the things that we really focus on. They're the four key components of being a successful course creator. And I think once you get all of those, not out of the way, but once you've achieved all of those four things, you get to this beautiful point which you're at right now, where you get to scale, and where if you're someone that is like me and you enjoy the marketing side of things, or well, really having the opportunity to scale this digital asset without it requiring more of your time, it's a beautiful space to be in and you deserve it. So congratulations.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without you. I could actually physically say that because I couldn't have.
So where can people find you? And let's talk about this lead magnet that you've got, because we need some more. Anyone that's listening to this that is a travel agent that is inspired by Steph's story, I think you need some more Steph in your life.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. So it's travel.by.stephanie. And my lead magnet is the 7 quick win lead generation strategies that travel agents need right now. And you can DM me, more than happy to send you the link to the lead magnet. And yeah, looking forward to helping you build your digital presence and owning your space online.
Amazing. And we'll pop the link to the show notes in there as well. Guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And thank you, Steph, for sharing your story. I know a lot of people will be inspired by it. And guys, we will see you next week.
Wow, I hope you all really enjoyed that episode. That, my friends, was my first ever guest speaking podcast. So it was so nice to be a guest on Stevie's podcast and not having to think of the questions to ask. And it was so nice having a professional podcaster guide me through the episode. So, if you are wanting to download an online version of today's show notes, you can head over to travelbystephanie.com.au/38. For episode details, you're only one online course away from a totally different life. And I would love to extend an invitation to you to join my free masterclass to steal my 3-part Travel Agent Runway framework and how to stand out in the digital world. If you want to sign up, head over to stephaniemyers.academy/masterclass, and the link will be in the show notes as well. Also, if you are enjoying Unplug in Paradise, the podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Spotify. And if you're feeling extra generous, we would love this. Please leave me a 5-star rating and review. I absolutely love reading all of them and always love sharing the feedback on my socials as well. Thank you so much for staying for the entire episode and would love to know your feedback. Stay tuned for next week for more travel agent tips, tricks, mindset, motivation, and practical advice. I will see you then. Bye.